Help support Name Explain by liking this video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. In the southwestern Pacific Ocean, in a part of the world with the fun name of Maritime Southeast Asia, lies the island of Borneo. Something about this island I didn't realise is just how massive it is. In fact, it's the third largest island in the world, just behind Greenland and New Guinea. Sorry Australia, you don't count as an island. This makes it the largest island in Asia, or second largest if you consider New Guinea part of Asia, which some people do apparently. I'm sure that many people will agree that Germany is a pretty big country. Borneo, however, is twice the size of Germany. Like I said, I just didn't know it was that huge. Borneo is also home to a huge array of wildlife. This is because half of the island is covered with rainforest. It's thought to be one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, home to over 200 different species of mammal, with around 40 of those being native to the island. As well as animals, the island has around 15,000 different plant species, including the largest floweret in the world, the Rafflesia arnoldii, which might look familiar to Pokemon fans. Borneo is a lot of things, however something it is not is a country. Despite how popular it is and the image it has shaped for itself, the island of Borneo is not an independent nation like many other islands such as Madagascar or Iceland. Some islands on our planet are home to two nations. Take the island of Hispaniola, homing the two countries of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and the island of Ireland, which homes the nations of just Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. While these islands have two nations on them, Borneo takes it a step further and has three nations on the island. In fact, it's the only island on the planet to have more than two countries on it. Well, unless you want to be silly and claim that Afro-Eurasia or the Americas are just massive islands. Though, what three nations make themselves home on the island of Borneo? Well, Borneo is home to parts of Malaysia, part of Indonesia, and the entirety of the small nation of Brunei. The island of Borneo became so divided due to the history that's played out in this part of the world. Many European countries wanted land here so they could have a better role and more impact in the Asian trading routes of the time. Two European empires came out on top, it would seem, the Dutch Empire and the British Empire. They claimed land all across maritime Southeast Asia. While these empires claimed entire islands on the whole, Borneo's size led to the island being split between the Dutch and the British. The land the Dutch had in maritime Southeast Asia would eventually become the independent nation of Indonesia, and the land the British had would eventually become the independent nations of Brunei and Malaysia. And when these nations gained independence, the land their former empires had in Borneo transferred over to them. Brunei, however, was supposed to be part of the Federation of Malaysia, but due to a revolt and a referendum there it became its own nation, and Brunei has a deep history as a sultanate on the island too, though this does explain to us why this island is so uniquely split between three different nations. Though I must admit that was a very brief and oversimplified explanation on the history of Borneo. Though this video isn't really about the history that's taken place here, there are many languages spoken on the island of Borneo and in the countries that call the island home / partial home. And when I say there's a lot of languages, I mean a lot. I read that there are over 100 different languages spoken on the island from the various native tribes there, and Wikipedia states that in Indonesia alone there are over 700 languages. Don't worry though, we won't be looking into these 700 or so languages. We'll just stick to the official languages of these three nations. Malay is the official language of Malaysia and Brunei, and Indonesian is the official language of Indonesia. So we have two primary languages being spoken by the three nations on Borneo, and in these two languages the island has different names, and on top of this the parts of the island that belong to different nations have their own names too, and then those split into smaller areas too. It's safe to say we have a good few names to get through. In the English language we use the name of Borneo, and this is also the name used in the Malaysian language too. However, I've seen some variations. I've seen it referred to as Pulau Borneo, as Pulan means island in Malay, and I've seen it simply referred to as East Malaysia, which makes a ton of sense as it's the more eastern part of Malaysia. There's not the most exciting of names. As for where the name of Borneo comes from, well, it seems there are a couple of ideas. In classic European colonists mispronouncing fashion, both these ideas on the name of Borneo come from either Spanish or Portuguese settlers mispronouncing another word. One idea is that the name comes from a mispronunciation of Brunei. As I mentioned, Brunei was an established settlement on the island before Europeans arrived, and this makes sense as Brunei and Borneo do sound somewhat similar. However, I also read that the name may come from a different mispronunciation entirely, that being a mispronunciation pronunciation of the name for a fruit found on the island, the buah nuah, which is the Malay term for the coconut. So whether the name Borneo comes from a mispronunciation of a sultanate, a fruit, or something else entirely is anyone's guess. So of course, this confusion over Borneo's etymological origins has brought up debate over the years as to whether the name is related to Brunei or not. I've read various people online saying yes, the names are related, and no, they are not related. It's one of those things we just don't really know, I'm afraid, but I'd love to hear what you guys think on the matter. The popular idea seems to be, however, that it does come from Brunei. So if Borneo does come from the name Brunei, then where does this name come from? Well, once again we have a few ideas as to where the name comes from. One of these ideas are very water based. It's thought the name either comes from the Sanskrit Varuna meaning water, or it comes from Varuna, a Hindu god of the ocean / rain. Like I said, it's very water based, which makes sense as Borneo is an island surrounded by water. However, there's a folktale about how the name Brunei came to be which I absolutely adore. The first sultan of the initial sultanate of Brunei was called Muhammad Shah, and the legend goes that when he set foot on the land, he would eventually rule. He shouted Balu Na, which means something along the lines of there or it's here, and from that scream of Balu Na formed the name of Brunei. Like I said, this is just a legend / folklore, but I really hope it is true, as it would make Brunei perhaps the only nation on the planet to be named after a scream of excitement. The part of Borneo that is governed by Malaysia is split into two states, these being SABA in the north of the island and Sarawak in the northwest. It is uncertain as to where the name SABA actually came from. It was instated on the island when North Borneo gained independence from the British and became part of Malaysia in 1963. However, despite that being quite recent, the name SABA is believed to have been the name for this land way before Europeans got there. There are some ideas as to what the name means, my favourite being that it was named after a banana plant called the PISANG SABA, which grows in the land. Like with SABA, there is no solid idea on how the name Sarawak came about either, other than the land was named after the Sarawak River. The river is thought to possibly be named after a mineral that was found in it called SERAH. Another idea is that it comes from the phrase SERAH KEPADA AWAK, which means give it to you, as in the 15th century this land was taken over by a sultan. The move was very welcomed by the locals, so they gave it to him. And another theory I read that is named after pineapples, so that gives us 3 fruit themed name theories. The island being named after coconuts, SABA being named after bananas, and Sarawak being named after pineapples. It's safe to say we're being very fruitful when it comes to finding names here. However, that's just the names that Malaysia use in Borneo. What about the nation that has more land on the island? Indonesia. Well, they use a name completely different to Borneo. The Indonesian name for Borneo is Kalimanthana. This name is used in 2 ways in Indonesia. It's used to refer to the island as a whole in their language, and this name is used specifically for the part of the island that is governed by Indonesia. What does this name mean, however? Well, while the Spanish / Portuguese were busy mispronouncing sultanate and fruit names, the Indonesians were noticing something else about the land. Its incredibly hot and humid climate. The name Kalimantan derives from the Sanskrit Kalamanthana, which can be translated in various ways in English. It can be read as burning weather island, island with a very hot temperature, and island with burning air. So yes, the weather played a very large role in the creation of this name. Like how Malaysia's part of Borneo is split into 2 states, Indonesia's share of the island is split into 5 provinces, all with super complex names that we have to delve into. They're called North, East, South, West and Central Kalimantan. Okay, so maybe they aren't as complex as I made them out to be. And Brunei, despite being so small, is split up into 4 districts. These are called Belat, Tutong, Tembolong and Brunei Mulala. That last district's name simply comes from a combination of the nation's name and the name for a town in that region, Mulala. And Belat, Tutong and Tembolong are all seemingly named after rivers that run through them, though I couldn't find out much more info on them, I'm afraid. And while that may be the names the countries on Borneo use for the island, how did the nations that are on the island get their names? Well, we covered Brunei earlier in this video, and Indonesia actually has a video unto itself on the channel, all about its name and how it relates to India. So what about Malaysia? How did it get its name? Well, with this name you'll spot that ever-present ear suffix we see with so many nations. This means land of, so we can realise that this name means the land of the Malay. The S was added between Malay and ear, possibly for grammatical reasons, though I read it was supposed to represent Singapore, which at one point in history was meant to be part of the Malaysian Federation. The name Malaysia was adopted once the land was independent from the British, and of course the Malay are an ethnic group that are native to this part of the world. So if Malaysia is named after the Malay, then how on earth did the Malay get their names? Well, this is the English version of their name. In the Malay language, they are called the Malayu. Malayu became Malay in English as it travelled across languages. When the Portuguese met these people, they called them in their language the Malayo, and when the Dutch heard this name, they transliterated it into Malayo, and when the English heard the Dutch name, they translated it into Malay. So the name bounced from Malay to Portuguese to Dutch to English, changing with every step until it became what it is today. But where did that initial name of Malayu come from? Well, once again, we aren't 100% sure, though it's thought to come from the Malayu River in Malaysia. Though, let's go back to Borneo, as I want to wrap this up with a really fun etymological fact about quite possibly Borneo's most popular residents, the orangutans. These wonderful primates are only found natively on the island of Borneo and the nearby island of Sumatra. Many people from around the globe visit Borneo just to see these great apes in their natural habitats. As their fur is ginger/orange coloured and their name sounds so much like the word orange, you wouldn't be too crazy to presume that's where the name comes from. However, it's actually just a huge coincidence. The name orangutan comes from the Malay words orang, meaning human, and hutan, meaning forest. So their name quite literally means man of the forest. Just Malaysia was suggested by Ekmal Sukarno, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explained's patron saint of Malaysia. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explained video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explained Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explained on a monthly basis. Name Explained depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you Patreon exclusive Name Explained extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explained. You can follow myself on Twitter at NameExplainedYT. Follow me there and tweet the name Derek at me so I know you came from this message. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.